Okay, so can we go ahead and get started?
Go right ahead, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Human Services Committee. It is November 8th, 2022, Election Day, 5:30 p.m. By remote participation. The Zoom meeting is https town//barnstable-us.zoom.us/j 3200185238 meeting ID 832-0018-5238 on 877-853-5257 US toll free 888-475-4499 US toll free 833-548-0276 meeting ID 832-018-5238. I will do a roll call. I am Cheryl Powell, Chair. Committee member Megan Mort. You might be muted. I know that you're here. Oh,
Hi.
Hi. Hey, Megan. Good. Committee member Carlos Barbosa.
I'm here.
Committee members and also State Representative Steve Siros. He may come in late. Committee member Liz Rabideau.
Here.
Oh, you're here? Excellent. Thank you, Liz. And Scott Fitzgerald did let us know that he was unable to attend tonight. And new committee member, full committee member, Dr. Kim Crocker-Crowther will be joining us as soon as she finishes with the last patient. So that's our roll call. Committee membership, we're still looking for a couple more members. See if we can get two alternate positions in place. Very quickly, and I'll come back to it later if there's time, we've been doing these meetings with key members of the public and key areas of the public that represent key areas of the public to try to formulate a baseline so that we can fulfill our function to try to identify needs within the community and also try to come up with some sort of plan or proposal to suggest before the town council. We're getting close to where we need to sit down with all the information. We have some wonderful speakers tonight to help fill in some of the gaps that we have. So we'll be coming back to the plan. When we do that, I will be inviting all of the speakers we have had and other representatives of the public to please join us as well so that it's formulated by the community. So our guest speakers tonight are Michelle Acito, who is certified addictions registered nurse, CARN, vice president of business development at Relief Home Health Services. Holly Brown, director of clinical services. We also had the pleasure of welcoming Chief Sonnabend from the Barnstable Police Department and Sergeant Matthew Butler, also from the Barnstable Police Department. I will be, after they've spoken, I will also open it. Actually, I'll go ahead and open for public comment. If there is anyone just beforehand, but we'll be opening up more for reactions to the public should they key in. I take it we have no members from the public in the waiting room?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so if I can invite Michelle Acito from Relief. Welcome, Michelle, and thank you so much for agreeing. You had a wonderful event the other day, open house. If you could give us a little bit of information about Relief for the other committee members, about the wonderful things that you do, and also what you see as the needs. We do not have a hard stop tonight, but we want to try to keep to 20-25 minutes if possible. We all look forward to hearing what you say. Oh, and by the way, before you do, I see that Kim Crocker-Crowther, welcome as a full voting committee member tonight, has joined us. Can you hear us okay, Kim? You may need to unmute yourself. Oh,
oops, sorry about that. I was sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And it's nice to be here.
Welcome to the group.
Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, you're up.
I am up. Greetings and thank you for having us on tonight. It's
it's good to have all of these organizations trying to help the community and try to improve situations for the clients that we serve. And just a background, when I started my nursing career, it was in homeless healthcare and in addiction services. So that became a quick passion for mine. And I found over the years that it's really where I wanted to focus my efforts. And we started this project with Relief Home Health about 5 years ago, in an ability to, creating an ability to help people stay out of the emergency room, decrease hospitalization use, improve quality of life, become, and I always hate the word compliant, but become more compliant with medications in order to stabilize and be more productive in the community and whatnot. And we have done an exponential growth, almost one of those hockey stick growths of now in 5 years' time, we have 140 employees and over 600 patients that are on long-term care with us. And that number continues to rise every month. And part of it is because what we've done is we've created a team, much like most of the police departments and and you have a team of people that approach a situation and try to create goals and improve situations and try to not have repeat situations. And so we've created teams around patients that involve both nursing, and we have occupational therapists and other therapists as well. We involve the providers. Kim Crocker is one of our like go-to providers for our patients, which is fantastic. We work with the fire department, with the police departments, with the NAMI. We sit on multiple meetings on a monthly, if not more often basis, the emergency winter response team for the homeless. Holly and I are both members of the Behavioral Health Coalition for the Cape and Islands. We sit on the steering committee, trying to educate the public, educate the providers, de-silo services that are happening around town. And all of it obviously is an effort to help not just our clients, but the whole community overall. So we actually getting involved in a lot of other community projects as much as we can. So not only to get our information about what we do out there, but also to have a positive impact on the communities that we actually live in. And it's proved itself to be a successful model, and that one that we're very proud of. We know that we have assisted a lot of clients into living much healthier lives and decreasing the frequency of how often they go to the emergency room. Unfortunately, we can't decrease it all, but for someone to have used to gone 4 times a month to only going 6 times a year, that's harm reduction. That's an improvement. That's a decrease in exhausting our services. And that has really been a focus of ours that we've maintained. And that will continue to be our mission, even though we are expanding into taking on now Jerry Psych. And then that's in response to there being very few people here that even provide psychiatric services for geriatric patients, a limited number of people that can work with them, Medicare limiting how much you're even able to do with them. But we're getting more and more of our population becoming aging and less services available for them. So we saw a need to fulfill that for both our clients. And now we're finding that it's also a response from the community as well. We have significant number of aging schizophrenics who have been living at home with their 80-year-old parents, and now their 80-year-old parents can no longer take care of them, and they've never been in a home, they've never been around anyone else. So what happens to them as they age out? So there's a lot of different things that we look at as to focus on where can our next project be. That's one of the reasons that we went down the road of the Jerry Psych. We were heavily involved during the COVID era. We did a lot of participation in the test sites. We did vaccination clinics, not just for the homeless population, but we helped the county out where we could. We work with Whole Health as well. We are currently now embedded in most of the sober homes and transitional shelters in the community. We do a significant amount of case management for those clients there. We try to help out whoever we can while we're there, even if they're not on service. We do coat drives, we do all sorts of other things in order to respond to the needs that we see. We have met recently with Chief Burke from the Hyannis Fire Department, which is, I can literally see his office from my window, and I can see the roof of the shelter from my window. And so, as you can imagine, we have a lot of activity in our streets, which is one of the reasons I put my office right here, is so that we could be a stone's throw away from the shelter and a walking distance to Champ House and Homeless Not Hopeless. And where that puts us now is in direct contact with the number of homeless people walking in the street. We have great relationships with everybody. You know, they sit on our lawn as long as they don't make a mess, they clean up themselves, it's okay. But it's allowed us to keep a finger on the pulse of what's actually going on and changing in the community as well. And what we're seeing, and one of the things Cheryl wanted me to comment on, is the face of the homeless population appears to be shifting. It's certainly, I think we're all feeling it, shifting to a more elderly population. We are seeing, and we have heard from our chronically Cape Cod resident homebounds, chronically homeless individuals, that more and more people are coming from off Cape, and I'll use their terminology, cutting the line to the services they're waiting for. And so we're seeing a lot of that going on. At least we're hearing more of it. We, on a regular basis, and Holly can probably tell you how often, because she sees it out her window more than my side, we have to call 911 a lot. 2 weeks ago, it was because someone was literally on their hands and knees crawling across North Street. 3 days ago, it was because someone was passed out on our front steps. So it's happening more and more. And we're trying to figure out a system where we potentially can go do ride-alongs or meet the fire department where they're going to the same address over and over again for the same person over and over again, to try to see, maybe on a non-emergency basis, can we go meet and greet that person and either get them on services or connected to other providers who can help stop that cycle. So those are some of the other things we're working on. I can put Holly on the spot and ask her if she has anything to contribute, but I could probably talk nonstop, and I know we have 20 minutes, so I did definitely want to leave room for questions or comments or something. Holly, did you want to add anything?
I think you covered it beautifully, Michelle, as always. Thank you, everybody, for having us on.
Lost sound?
Yeah, you're breaking up, Holly. Stop. Oh, now she's frozen.
Give her a chance to get back on.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We talk a lot in the agency about how this time of year we see a significant change in our population. We're heading into the holidays, the days are getting shorter, it's getting colder outside. Some of the safe havens our patients were able to access during the summer months and warmer months get even harder and harder at this time of year. So, you know, as far as the numbers, I would say on any daily given basis, we're probably sending within a week's time, maybe 5 patients to the emergency room. But when we send them, what's happening is they're significantly in crisis. So we're trying to divert from the emergency room when it's the cough or cold, and send them to help them connect to their primary care doctor. And also we work closely with the providers like Kim in the area. So we have great partnerships with them, and we feel very lucky to be able to reach them when we need some help. So we have great relationships like that. I would just say that I think we're all probably seeing, as the weather changes, we're going to start to see an increase in the services needed for the populations that we work with.
Thank you very much. So if it's all right with you, I'm going to go on to Chief Sonnabend and then come back for, comments on everything. Is that all right? Or would you rather do it separately? You okay with that?
Okay with me.
Okay. So, Chief Sonnabend, thank you so much for joining us. I was going to invite Chief Burke as well, but that's going to have to wait till next time. Simply because I didn't want to go too short for people's time, and I didn't want to take too much into time that, even though we don't have a hard stop, too much more than what people expect. But I thank you very much for joining us. As you can probably gather, we're trying to bring the community together. It's human services task, the way I see it, but by bringing the community together as much as possible. We're only really just scratching the surface at the moment, but there are key areas, and you cover one of them. But thank you very much for agreeing to join us tonight. And we'd love to hear, your views on the overall situation in the community and what you're seeing and confronting. And your officers do a great job, but what are they bringing back to the table, so to speak?
Well, thanks for having us. I brought Sergeant Mark Butler with me, who works in the community impact unit, mainly down in the Main Street area with the homeless population. And certainly what Mr. Cito said really is what we see every day, dealing with that population and the people in there. But not only with them, with the population in general, the mental health and addiction levels in the community are high, and they seem higher than they ever have been, not just in the, like I said, in the homeless population, but we're seeing this reflective in the elder population and everywhere else. The department is what they call the primary public safety answering point, which means all the 911 calls in the town of Barnstable will come to us. We dispatch for Hyannis Fire, so anything they go to, we're dispatching and we're aware of. And we also work with the other fire departments in the community to get calls to them. However, the police are the ones that are going pretty much everywhere. And from all the villages, you're running into these issues in every village to one extent or another. You're running into hoarding issues with people, you're running into homelessness issues, couch surfing, addiction, mental health. It seems that lately the number of mental health related calls has really skyrocketed. The number of suicide attempts, we're out there all the time. It used to be a rare thing for you to get a call on that, and we're getting multiple calls like that a day, going to different places, to the extent that we have hired a full-time clinician to ride around with police officers. We have a part-time clinician that has been working with the community impact unit, focusing in the downtown area for many years. But we just recently hired a full-time clinician to ride with police officers in other areas of the town to get to these types of calls. And the issue is that while the police are good at what they do and we train them well, we can't possibly train them to the extent necessary or with the expertise that a clinician or a licensed mental health worker has to be able to work with some people. We're responding to car accidents and everything else that come in, and we don't necessarily have the time or resources to sit for hours and hours with one person trying to resolve one person's issue. And you got another call coming in, you got to go deal with someone else who's facing the same kind of issue. So that's what you see. And I've said it before to different people. I think really what the town should be looking at is some sort of a human services department that works with some of these things, coordinators, and getting some of this off the back. So I don't think you're ever going to get it off the backs of the police or the fire, because we're legitimately the only agencies that are working 24/7, 365. When 911 rings, it doesn't go to the hospital. It doesn't go to a doctor. It comes to us. And then we end up going out there and trying to assess what's going on. And in a lot of these situations, the calls aren't coming from a person in crisis. They're coming from a third party who sees someone in crisis and doesn't know what it is and calls it in as either a violent person or someone who's intoxicated. And that's how the police, over the years, the training has gotten much better, teaching them to slow down and assess what the situation is, because what the call comes in from a third party's perception isn't necessarily the reality of what's really going on. And a lot of people see someone who has, and not even just mental health issues, but autism or some of these other things, that are suffering in a crisis mode, and they think they're either violent or having some other problem going on, when in reality, all they really need is someone well-trained enough to slow the situation down and deal with them appropriately. And while we try and train our officers as best we can, it's an uphill battle to get everybody trained enough to be able to deal with this appropriately every day. I don't know if Sergeant Butler, do you have anything you wanted to add or say?
I don't actually see him on the participant.
He was here, but that's pretty much it. I mean, I think everyone here, I've seen some head nods, and I think we all recognize the fact that, and I don't know whether we're becoming more aware of what the issues are, or if they're more prevalent. Maybe it's a mix of both. I think people are becoming a little more aware of what mental health issues are, and that's kind of getting people's awareness up. But I also think that realistically, I think that there has been a rise in these situations, particularly since COVID, when a lot of times people couldn't access their regular care. They couldn't go see a doctor in person. They couldn't get to their therapist in person. And a lot of these people, quite honestly, don't have the resources to do Zoom. They don't have the resource or a place to live, never mind being able to access telemed and other things that other people have access to. They just don't. And I think people fell behind. But from the other part of the law enforcement perspective, I think that most of the people we deal with, when there's a call, it really, I'd say 80% probably come down to some sort of either a substance abuse issue, alcoholism, drugs, or mental health, or a combination of the two. And that's pretty much what I got. So
I think Kim and I, as mental health practitioners, would agree with you that there's a lot of comorbidity with those particular areas, which is why I don't think that we can direct our services towards just one thing, homelessness or housing or addictions or mental health, because they tend to overlap significantly. And if you take care of one, it causes problems back and forth. That's why we want to put together a plan. Of course, you'll be invited to kind of join us to try to put that plan together. I am going to open it up to, is there any public comment before I open it up to the committee members for questions, and also our guests for questions? If you're all right with that, Chief.
I'm good.
There is no public comment.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? If you could put your hand up so we're not all talking at once, I appreciate it. Do we have anyone that has any questions? Well, I have some questions, and while other people think of them.
I believe Carlos had a question, and so did Dr. Krauser.
Oh, okay. I didn't see any hands up. Maybe they're not showing up. I had trouble logging in tonight, as I explained to Cynthia when I logged in. So I've had to go in through my browser. So Cynthia, if you could help me if people put their hands up, because I'm not seeing anything.
Sure.
Carlos, would you like to go ahead, please?
Well, I just want to ask you the number of people who has this kind of issues. What's the percentage of the immigration community part of that?
Good question.
So I think I could probably maybe touch on that a little bit, because we're from P-Town all the way to Fall River. We actually have a Spanish team in New Bedford and a Portuguese team now. But what we do find is on Cape is that although we'd like to branch into, let's say, the Brazilian community, there are providers that focus on certain communities and certain providers who in certain cultures who take care of mental health issues in a very different way than others. And so it's been a challenge to try to break into that, to try to offer services, whether there's a cultural difference or a language barrier, or it's more like usually they don't want someone else participating in what the family's trying to take care of. It's not that we haven't been given the referrals and haven't tried. That's really what I've encountered. We are involved with the Wampanoag tribe at this point. We're starting to service their sober home, their transitional homes. So we are seeing a breakout into that cultural.
Yeah, I think the people who instead of going to the hospital or going to you guys, they go to the church, try to solve the problem right there on the church. So, which is not right. So,
right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question, Carlos?
Yes.
Thank you. And I believe, Kim, were you the other one?
I was. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
I just wanted to give a public shout out to both Michelle and Holly's team, and also to the Barnstable Police. We couldn't do the job, as you know, Cheryl, that we do here without their support. And in many times, Michelle's team, they are phenomenal, and they're the eyes and ears for letting us know when there is an emergent situation, and usually to averting a crisis. The Barnstable Police unfortunately comes to our office many times, and I think it's quite an asset that they are as skilled and gracious as they are, and also that they do have the ride-along psychiatric support that's come in handy many times. That's my comment and my thank you, but I did have a question, mostly I think for the chief. So we have a lot of patients that live in their cars at present. You know, we know the problem with shelters being overburdened, et cetera. We know where, quote, the hot spots are for people to try to sleep overnight in the Hyannis area in their cars. I wanted to have a little more information about how you manage that, because you can't ensure their safety. That does take a lot of time. And some of our patients that do sleep in their cars sometimes have an expectation for what the police can provide overnight. And I'm not sure that's reasonable. So I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about how you do manage that.
Well, I think regardless of whether you're living in your car or living in a house or living in the woods, you're entitled to the same protections that anybody else would have as a human being. And that's part of the philosophy of the community impact unit, that certainly the homeless have their struggles and issues with being insecure in where they live, but they also have the same social issues that we have. They're victims of crime. There are people that they're offenders. They prey on each other. So they deserve the same protections that anybody else would, regardless of whether or not what they're doing is questionable or whatever. As far as somebody living in their cars, we just deal with them as we come across them. We're not out there hunting anybody down. If we identify people who are living in their cars, we try and get the community impact unit involved so they can get out there and get them resources and do whatever they can to work with them. There have been people living in the commuter lot in campers and all kinds of stuff up there up by the community college, by the Burger King, and we've dealt with those. But I guess the bottom line is we just treat them like anybody else. You know, if you treat people with respect and treat them like a human being, then that's all we can ask of anybody. If they call and they have a complaint, we deal with it. If somebody calls and complains about them, we deal with it, and we go from there. That's pretty much it. It's pretty basic. But and to touch a little bit on Carlos's point about whether we're seeing, like in the immigrant populations or whatever, the same issues, I'm certain they exist. But I think the problem from the police perspective is that you have a population that's reluctant to call the police to begin with. So to say whether or not how big the problem is, I think you're right. I think they rely on other community supports within their own culture as opposed to reaching out because they're afraid that it's gonna expose other things. While the person who's suffering in crisis might not get in trouble, they're afraid that the family they're living with, because they have too many people in a house, it's going to draw unwanted attention. It's going to draw reports. It's going to draw other things. So I think there are reasons why people don't contact the police. So there are things that fall through the net. So I don't think we could accurately say how many there actually are.
Yeah, and I don't want to see again what happened with that couple that killed themselves in front of the two kids. So that's my concern about that. The immigrant community have some issues, health issues like that. So
I'm trying to get in with Harbor to actually have more conversations, because Harbor Health does see a large number of the Brazilian population and some of the Spanish population. But I can tell you the other barrier that they have is there's not a lot of them that have like a full insurance. Some of them have limited or very basic, and so they don't even have services. So other than giving free care, there's very few that I could even offer full services to. Not that we wouldn't offer free care to somebody who's really suffering, but I know that that's also a limitation because of whether it's their immigration status or whatnot. They're not only reluctant to say, hey, I'm here and see me, but they also can't afford, or they think they can't afford the things that would help them. That's a huge barrier.
So going to the emergency room is the issue, as you know. So I think it's very bad way to go to the emergency room with the issues like that. So
I have a question. Chief Sonneborn, you mentioned the community impact unit. I'm assuming that is a special police unit. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a unit that was formed probably about 8 or 9 years ago now. It's varied. It's usually got 3 members, 2 patrol officers and a superior officer, so like a sergeant. And they work mainly down in the Main Street Hyannis area with the homeless population, trying to get them into services. They work with Duffy and all the other Main Street providers. You know, people here have talked to. They've worked with them. They work with a shelter. They try and raise awareness. They work with the In from the Streets program in the wintertime. They help try and get people referred and off the streets. So instead of just not only that, but they also work with, you know, we have our personnel that are down in the Main Street area, the community service officers that wear those bright green shirts in the summertime, not only just trying to get them into services, but to divert them away from the court system, try and come up with alternative methods as opposed to arresting people, trying to work with them as best we can to try and, because we realize that not everyone is breaking the law, and a lot of people base their assumptions of others based on their appearance. And a lot of times, especially individuals in the homeless community may not actually be homeless, but they have mental health issues and they don't shower very much. They don't change their clothes very much, and they have an appearance which people, although they're not going to bother anybody, just people don't like seeing people like that, and it generates complaints. And we go down and we deal with people as best we can, and try and walk a fine line between enforcing the law and not violating someone's civil rights because they just look or appear to be a certain way. And sometimes it's public education, speaking with the people that call and explaining to them what the situation is, what we can and cannot do. Because quite honestly, people think we can just come down and arrest people and take them away, and that really isn't what it's about. You know, just arresting people and bringing them to court, because all it does is it's a revolving door. They can't pay for things, and they end up back in the court, and then they're back in the streets, and it's just back and forth. But the community impact unit was created to help work between the Main Street businesses, the residents down there, and the homeless population, and try and help other providers to try and identify people who we could help and deal with it. We do CCIT meeting, community crisis intervention meetings monthly. The community impact unit organizes those, and members of the healthcare system, the fire departments and whatnot come in, and we sit down and they do case studies on different people and try and triage people and see. You can't help everybody, but you can try and identify who the worst off might be and try and at least get them the help that they need. But that's basically what they do.
The community crisis meetings that you hold monthly, is that with a team or just the police, or who's that with?
No, it's organized by. Oh, Sergeant Butler, you there?
Yeah, I just want to let you know, Chief, I am here, if it helps.
Okay, so he can explain the meetings much better than I can.
Well, I don't know. You've explained them probably better than me. But hi, I am Mark Butler. Sorry that I was muted before. I am the sergeant who kind of oversees the community impact unit. It's myself, 2 officers, and a part-time clinician. So in addition to the monthly CCIT meetings, which we have every 3rd Tuesday of the month, we also have weekly outreach meetings, which we have every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. at the substation downtown. And those weekly meetings consist of Housing Assistance Corporation, VinFin, and Duffy, who are basically our major partners, at least in the downtown, as it relates to the homelessness. The monthly CCIT meetings are Barnstable District Court. Judge Julian is involved with that. He also runs drug court. We have District Court probation. We have Cape Cod Healthcare. We have the Cape Cod Psych unit is involved in the Cape Cod Healthcare as well. We have VinFin, Housing Assistance, Duffy, DDS, I'm going to forget, AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod. The list is expanding, but I know I'm missing a bunch. But it's a pretty diverse group, and like the chief said, sometimes we cover broad topics, whether it's the mental crisis situation that's going on nationally. Sometimes we are bringing up a lot of names to the best that we can without violating HIPAA and CORI and things like that. So we do a lot of triage of individuals, people that are really on the hot list that we think we can really make an impact with, but we're going to need the help of our partners. If someone's on pretrial conditions of release from court, We'll look at things like that to get the court involved. We'll look at probation statuses. Again, there's a huge diversion component to trying to help these individuals who may not necessarily need to be incarcerated, but there can be alternatives. So that's a short answer to what we do. On a day-to-day basis, we're downtown. Unlike the other patrol officers, we don't typically, unless it gets really, really busy, we're sort of excused from having to answer a lot of the other calls, whether it's domestic or car accidents or disturbances. So we are downtown every day, on the Village Green, on our public spaces on Main Street, in our wooded camps. So that's kind of our job. Myself and the other officers, we know these individuals by face, by name, personally, and that's kind of what we do.
Excellent. And I didn't want to interrupt you before. I was just going to introduce you, but you went ahead and took care of that. So thank you.
Oh,
There is
The,
a couple more, there is a committee member, Megan Mort, who has a question.
Yes, and also Lee Brown. So Megan, if we take you first, please.
Yeah, I would, a question kind of, I guess, for everyone, Michelle, Holly, and Chief Sonabend. Is there kind of a lack of bilingual or trilingual healthcare providers, and would more of them help access to the immigrant community and just the community in general?
From our perspective, as far as the Brazilian population, Harbor Health does a fantastic job. There's no language barriers at all there. Spanish as well. I don't see that culturally having a negative impact. I feel like if they have needs that need to be met, Harbor does a really good job. I actually used to work there. I know it's probably, but they're fantastic. They really are. So would it help to have someone else? That, and I'm sure the chief could probably answer that. I would venture to say that probably it's a small percentage of people in that community that even call the police when they have a problem.
Yeah, and I would reiterate. So we have several naturalized Brazilian citizens who work for the police department, and so getting access to people who speak Brazilian Portuguese really isn't a huge issue for us. We've actually, during the COVID crisis with the town, partnered with Harbor Health to provide interpreters to be down there to explain COVID testing and all that other stuff in the past. And we have Spanish speaking officers. We have officers that speak Italian. So there's a variety. The problem is that you never know what language is going to show up, and you're always short. So what we've done is we have partnered. We've actually got a contract with a company called Language Line, and we can call them at any time from a phone at any scene, and they can talk with whoever we're dealing with, whatever language we might need. They can also provide American Sign Language and other things. Because the problem that we run across is a little bit of a twofold problem. Anybody that we interview, a lot of times what we're doing is there's some sort of possibly a crime that was involved somewhere along the line. So whoever we use to interpret, it has to be able to appear in court or has to be a certified interpreter. So the court case might not get thrown out. So we don't want to have to deal with a victim of a serious crime like a murder, an assault, or a rape and tell them, hey, we couldn't prosecute your offender because we didn't have the appropriate certification on our translator. So we really have to be very cognizant of who we're actually using. But in a pinch, we not only use our officers that speak the languages, but we also, if we have to, we turn to family members or other community members. And quite honestly, a lot of times, if we end up going to a home, there usually is someone there who speaks English and is willing to help us at least get the basics that we need from anybody. But I guess it really couldn't hurt to have more people that speak the language. It's just, which language do you pick? Obviously Brazilian Portuguese is a big one. Spanish is a big one, but which population, you gotta be careful in which one you actually decide to pick.
Thank you.
We have the same thing. We have the same thing with Cape Cod Healthcare and with the behavioral health. We have our hired interpreters who are extremely good and very helpful. But it's for the same reasons that you mentioned, Chief Sonabend, because of legalities, HIPAA, and everything else. But also, we also have a machine. I can't remember if the machine's called, but it does it. Kim, since it's probably in relation to what I said, then don't want to forget Holly. Kim, you want to go ahead?
I just wanted, this is a really basic question for anyone that can answer it. So as I was alluding to earlier, we have a lot of folks that, are homeless or that are sleeping in their cars, and they often ask us for advice on very basic things like, where can I go to take a shower, to use restrooms, to do that kind of thing. And they tumble into being rather intrusive by like going into, as you know, Cumberland Farms say, and they're in there 6 times a day. That becomes the problem. So I know that some of the folks like will join one of the local gyms and that's how they get a shower. I just wondered, it's a really common question. Do you have any recommendations that we could share with folks or that you tell them when you're out in the community so that because some of them do want to go looking for a job, but as you know, they need to upgrade a little to be able to do that or shower or change clothes, etc.
I would say that, Duffy Health Center has the portable, they offer showers on a weekly basis. We just
do they? I never knew that.
They actually have a truck that has like 4 shower stalls. Falmouth
Is it on site at Duffy, Michelle?
They do keep it on site at Duffy.
And you can just go there. A person can just go
I think
there.
right now it's Thursdays, but you can contact Duffy and find out what their schedule is.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's a regular group of people that show up and take showers there every week.
And do you have to provide your own supplies, or they have all that?
They have all that. And they have clean socks and underwear to give out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Thank you.
I just want to let you know, so the health ministry in 70 Center Street, we have a full bathroom there, and they have a change of clothing for the people who take showers, that the homeless people too.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you.
I didn't know that.
Sorry,
That's
no.
fantastic. Thank you.
What's the name of the
Health
place?
Health Ministry, 70 Center Street, Hyannis.
Thank you again
Thank you.
for that. Yeah.
Sure.
And Holly, I want to thank you for being so incredibly patient. You have some questions?
Sure. I maybe comment question. I want to go back to Carlos first. I think that one of the things I was thinking as we were all talking, it kind of, for me, the population that you're talking about, Carlos, I feel like there might be an access point issue. I'm wondering from your experience, we know that Duffy has got a strong showing in Harbor Health, but I'm wondering if the people that are accessing the emergency room feel like that they're represented as far as from an access point on where to go. And I also wanted to comment, and I'm sorry because I froze a little bit there. I apologize, Michelle, if you've already addressed this, but I wanted to add to your point, Megan. One of the things, we have the service as well as to be able to call in and to do some of the translating visits with the population that we're working with. It often takes us multiple attempts. We'll get to know a patient, and we could be in there five or six visits before we really get to build the trust with somebody that we're working with. So I do think that once we have them, on service and we're working with them, an increase in a multilingual population of clinicians would be wonderful. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, just to address what you said about the immigrants community, like the chief says, that issues with, especially with the people undocumented, they're afraid to open a door. They don't know what's behind that door. So going to the emergency room, call the police, call you guys, they're not gonna do that. I've been working for this for 20 years, try to gain a trust and tell them it's okay to go, it's okay to talk to people.
Mhm.
Nothing's gonna happen to you. But it's hard. So,
Well, essentially that's what our nurses do. And if I wasn't clear, we are sometimes seeing people daily, if not twice a day, to make sure that they're taking their medication. We lock it up, we pick it up, we deliver it, even controlled substances, addiction treatment in the whole 9 yards. And the initial part of our relationship is building that trust, because they come to us having either been in crisis and their life has been in a bit of chaos, and we're seeing them on the almost getting. So we want to help be a partner on their journey, but they haven't necessarily had great relationships with the places that they've interacted with prior because they weren't in a great place. And so building that trust and creating those relationships and helping pave the way for them to re-engage is really, that's the challenge.
yeah. So the only way I see gain the trust is to bring pastors and the priests in one room all the immigrant community and try to tell them it's okay, and they listen to the pastors, they listen to the priest, but it is very hard to get those people together, I'm telling you.
Yeah. I'd love to be in that room.
Yeah, me too.
I will say it's to the extent that something like that room happens and you feel like something like the community impact unit can come in and basically explain that we are not DHS. I've never cared or questioned someone's immigration status, especially if they're in crisis. But even just generally speaking, it's, the days are kind of gone where we're concerned about where someone's from, or, barring any serious violent crimes that they may have committed in the past that they might commit in the future. We're looking at everybody essentially through the same lens. And I can tell you that there really aren't any officers anymore out there looking at people's immigration status like that. So if somebody's wanted, Department of Homeland Security, I imagine, will do their job, and they may ask for assistance and looking for a violent fugitive or something to that effect. But the population that we deal with, particularly the Brazilian population, is, I will say that there has been challenges in my own communication with them, but generally speaking, I'm trying to help them as much as I'm trying to help anybody else. One of the first Section 35 I did, which is an involuntary committal for substance abuse, was on a Brazilian gentleman who I could barely communicate with, but he had no family. He had no doctor that he was seeing. He was outside freezing behind a vacant building. And, it was the first time that I took an opportunity to maybe get somebody off the street. So, to the extent that we can help spread the word that we're not out there trying to do that, and if we can show up in uniform and help with that, we'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, see, the Barnstable police, I know they don't do anything to the immigrant community. I know that, but the sheriff's office have a contract with immigration, as you know, and people tend to connect sheriff's office with the police department, and they are very scared about that. Hopefully, today is going to change something here, I hope. So I'm talking about Donna Buckley, who promised me to kill that contract if she got in office. But, that's the political side of the whole thing.
So, Holly, you still have your hand up. Did you have another question? Oh, okay. Have your hand down. I guess it did. So I do still have it open to public comment. It doesn't look like we have anyone from the public actually on. And were there any more questions? No.
I have a tangential question, if I could, Sergeant Butler and Chief Sonneborn, if we could potentially meet outside this meeting at some point, because I used to be more involved with the impact team, and then COVID happened, and I had to disengage with a lot of the interactions I had. So if sidebar from that, we could meet, I'd appreciate that.
So we've had, was there any more, did I hear somebody that had a question?
Oh, I just have a comment. I want to say hi to Holly and her husband. So I'm very good friends with her husband. So say hi to Matt for me.
So we've been doing this since June, and we're trying to formulate a base, as I said, so that we can then try to come up with some sort of plan. But bringing in the whole community, not just the committee members, but bringing in the whole community as much as possible, and it will be ongoing. What I'll be doing between now and the next time we meet will be, I've been typing up the various reports that have come, the people who have presented to us at Cape Cod Healthcare, where I do have a question. We've the Behavioral Health Executive Director at Directors, and we've had the pleasure of having the Director of NAMI. We've had Kevin Rosario from the Gosnell unit. We've had housing represented, and now this is it's our pleasure to have Chief Sonneborn, Michelle, and Holly. Thank you so much. We're trying to, when I first came on, I looked at our guidelines and our goals, and it looks like it counted, we had 41 groups, and I thought, well, there's about 80 more. Gosnell, for instance, wasn't on there. But there are key issues in the community, but there's no way to address the needs of one particular thing, or we'll never get there. So to look at the categories, and what we basically named so far was mental health, addictions, homeless, housing, and mental health. Mental health seemed to go across the whole gambit of it, as it's there, as what you said before, it's comorbid. So what I'm going to do is the various people who have spoken tonight, like the others who have spoken before, send them what I have taken from the, you should probably notice I've been taking notes, what was said, send it to you to see if you're all right with me to then send it out to all the committee members to consider, and to, there'll be a separate question if I can send it on to the other speakers we have had so that we're all on the same page. We are formulating a database. Because that's how I got into this. I was trying to help my patients, and I thought, oh, we don't have anything I know of to deal with this, that, and the other. Let's see if the town has something. And since I'm chair of another commission and also serve on another one as well, so I'm on 3, I thought, let's check with the town head. But it didn't seem to have that database. So we're putting that together. And the whole idea is to bring the community together, and hopefully within the next couple months, we may have one more speaker, which is a specialist I know on addictions nationally, who had a challenge during the number of trainings I did with that individual, who's based out of New York and advises nationally, is you need to do things in your own community. And I said I'll be contacting you fairly soon, because I'm going to probably invite you to tell us how to do that, and how to bring the community together. So that's one new one. I would like to talk with Chief Burke. Before I go on to the other part, I had one question, and that is, Chief Sonnabend, you mentioned that you have somebody within it that represents Cape Cod Healthcare. Is that a special department in Cape Cod Healthcare with the when they're in your community, the community impact unit?
No, they're just invited to participate. Sergeant Butler handles the invitations, and people from Cape Cod Healthcare are invited to attend the meetings. But we speak to Cape Cod Healthcare on a fairly regular basis for a variety of different things.
Okay, feel free to put us on the list. Yeah, I wanted to see the people, our wonderful speakers we have tonight. Do you have any questions of the committee members? Any of us?
Can I just mention one thing if you have a second?
Sure.
One of the things that I don't think is talked about quite enough is the fact that, I mean, it's well known, but this is everything regarding the homeless is really voluntary. So we have been dealing with, a chronic homeless problem for years, and I don't want to call them non-compliant either, but they're resistant to a lot of the services and the programs that are designed to specifically help them. So, at the end of the day, we as a CIU, we try to pick out the people from those groups that we think we can really make a connection with and direct them to the services that we think they're going to accept. But especially in downtown Hyannis, it's the most densely, business district. It's also the most densely populated homeless issue on Cape Cod. So those two things, I think, coexist pretty well, even with the problems. So I just wanted to say, like, some of the chronic, a lot of people put the blame on the shelter at times. The shelter has rules, and generally speaking, the people that are able to get into shelter beds are compliant, at least with those general rules, which is to show up at a certain time, relatively sober. But we do deal with a large number of chronically homeless people that we've been dealing with for years that are really resistant to a lot of what's out there. So just throwing it out there.
I appreciate that. And yes, we do get homeless patients, and Kim, I don't know if you have the same, but I also see that resistance. I distrust.
The help-seeking, help-resistant pattern is the most challenging in all of the aspects of the care that we, and I'm sure everyone else, tries to provide. That it's just so, then you make the connections a lot of the times, through relief services or our other arm, Helping Hands, and then you have it all set up and people reject it. It's like that self-sabotage is really, really hard to work with.
I would agree with that. I find
many of the people that we've identified as living in their vehicles and even of an advanced age, we have outreached them numerous times. They have been offered to.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the problems is that they don't accept congregate housing for various reasons, whether it's mental illness or just personal preference. And so they prefer to stay in what feels safe to them, and that's their vehicle. It might not sound normal to a lot of people, but it is to an extent a choice. So they do resist congregate housing, whether it's an emergency shelter or it's another type of congregate shelter, and do tend to stay in their cars longer than we would like, of course, but it is what they choose sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes.
I would say my experience on that is that with the congregate shelters and housing type deal, what I often see is that that is equal to change, and sometimes it means changes within their personal life, and that they know how difficult it is because generally that has been a challenge for a long time. There's also the exposure factor, the shame and the embarrassment factors as well.
Well, there's also the substance factor, because you can't have certain meds in some of these shelters or congregate settings. And as we know with the benzo issue, that's significant. And that's another reason why people don't elect to go to those other settings.
Because they have rules and because it also has exposure. This is what I'm doing. Yes, I agree. But anyway. All right. So is everyone all right with me typing up over the next month and getting you a copy of basically the outline of what was said and then if you are okay with it, there'll be a question. Is it all right to send it out to the other committee members and to our other speakers to put together a group? Does anyone have a problem with that?
No.
Nope. No. Okay. Well, not just committee members, our speakers as well. Are you, if there's if you're not happy with that? Okay. So I wanted to thank our speakers. It's been very, very helpful. I would like to, as I said, within the next 2 months, put all of our speakers together and try to come up with a plan with all the information that we've already gathered. It will be ongoing each time we meet. Unfortunately, we only meet monthly. Try to add on to that base of not only the database, but to try to put a firmer foundation down on which to build. But I have already sent a report to the town council, which I will be giving an update, but to try to follow our directives, which is to try to put together some sort of coherent, plausible proposal, and also a review of the needs that have been expressed within the community and some of the statistics and remarks that have been made.
Carol, if I may,
so
the database you're putting together, what is it you're looking for?
We're putting together services like relief. Was relief on there? I can't remember. So we're definitely on it, but putting things like relief, this is a number, this is where they're located.
I just don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel that already exists. I'll guarantee you that the Behavioral Health Coalition probably has almost all of those, plus the Emergency Winter Impact Program, that they probably have the rest of them. So I don't know, Holly.
A lot of them, I do have their contact. They're on my to-do list to contact them to see what they have. I've been told it's not already done, but there's going to be some overlap, so try to put them all together. But yes, I am aware of them, but thank you. So are there any other questions? I want to thank our speakers. I want to thank the committee members for all of your help. The speakers are welcome to be with us for the rest of the meeting. It's just, if you like, it's up to you. but there's not a whole lot. We've probably got only a few minutes left.
I'm actually going to step
So
off.
with-
Thank you for having me, and good luck, and let me know if you need any more information.
Thank you very much.
Been very helpful.
Thank you. Nice to see
Bye.
you. Thank you.
Bye, Holly. Bye, Michelle.
Bye,
Nice
Kim.
to see you.
Thanks. So the only other things we have yet to do, and we've had great comments tonight. I don't see if there's any matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair, unless anyone has anything there. And the minutes I'm going to table to the next meeting. And so I take it nothing else needs to come up other than, Cynthia, to let you know that Kim is sworn in. She has given me a copy. Do you want me to scan that and send it to you? Do you want to just ask the clerk's office for a copy of that?
No, I can get it from the clerk. Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you. Kim, thank you for tending to that.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, so and welcome. Anyway, so would one of the committee members like to make a motion for an adjournment?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who was that? Oh, Liz, thank you.
Liz, yes.
So, thank you. So, committee member, Ms. Roberto?
Yes.
Roberto?
Yep.
Committee member Carlos Barbosa?
Yes.
Committee member Megan Moore?
She may have lost her connection.
Okay, not a problem. Committee member Kim Crocker-Crowther?
Yes.
I also say yes. Have I missed anybody? Nope. In that case, the last thing is to thank Cynthia for your wonderful services this evening, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good night.
Enjoy
you.
Enjoy Thanksgiving.